After over 25 years of marriage, we've learned that successful couples have great friendships, put each other first, and focus on light just as much as love. We believe marriage should be fun and easy.
Our goal is to share our journey with the hopes of helping others build strong, happy relationships. Join us as we continue to create our lives beyond I do. Before we get into our episode, we want to share this disclaimer. We are not marriage counselors, nor are we mental health professionals. We simply want to share with you what has worked in our marriage. Now, on to our episode. Welcome back to the Beyond I Do podcast. On this episode, we have a guest, Rico McPherson, who comes to us from his business, WayMaker Services, where he is a business consultant and financial fitness coach. He is also a military veteran, and he is going to tell us a little bit about himself and how he got to where he is now in his journey. So welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk about, the journey, because it's a journey for everybody. Right. Everybody's journey is different. And it just happens to be something that we don't talk about often, right. As we should. We should talk about it more than what we do. And we can get into that. But part of my journey is just started really with seeing some things after being in the military, and the same cycle that I would see with people coming out and they immediately looking for a job, and family members, some people that when I was in high school and joined the military and came out, they still doing the same thing. Right. The same struggles. And what I found was that this was common, and it didn't matter really what educational level you're at or what kind of accolades you have behind your name. Everyone's struggling, and there's reasons behind that struggle, and it's just what it starts with, making the conversation around money easier. And I know that it wasn't something that my family talked about around the kitchen table, and it's the same thing with other families across America, that this is just not something that's talked about. Usually stressed, other than, hey, going and getting your education, getting that degree, getting that profession, and then that's it. And then you end up in the world, and you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? I'm having these problems, but right. Who do I consult? There's so much information out there. Who do I trust? So hence that began my journey to want to combat that in some way. I did a little bit of that in the military, and then I joined corporate America. I hated it. They were like, people say it's not good to hate them, but I really didn't like it. And there was a reason why. I just was not happy. Dealing with people weren't happy with the pay that they were getting. They felt stuck. They couldn't progress the way that they wanted to progress. And then they had a lot of responsibilities, a lot of stress. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is not where I need to be. Maybe I should be doing something else. And then I started on my journey that is rewarding, but it's also challenging to get people to talk more about what they don't really want to talk about.
Right. And it is an uncomfortable conversation. I think part of it is that lack of knowledge. And then there's a level of shame and embarrassment once you get to adulthood to talk about those things.
I think we're perceived to kind of have everything together, and everybody's put on this facade for one another, especially, that teenage stage, you're growing up like, man, I got everything together. And, but deep down inside, you realize behind closed doors that it really ain't together.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because there's just a lot of things, say there's a lot of shame behind it. There's people that put on this mask in public, and they're, oh, well, I have the nicest clothes, nice car. And those folks are struggling too. They just don't show it. and you keep it behind closed doors. So it's like, where do you go? And it, as I said before, it doesn't matter what profession or how much money you make. If you don't know what to do with it, then you end up lost. And a lot of folks think, you know, we got to a certain point of the year where section of our population is highlighted, you know, the unhoused. Yes. And there are people that all throughout the year, they don't like to see them.
Right.
They go around the stores and they treat them like, you know, you're less than human because you're poor or you don't have a place to live. And what they don't realize is that it doesn't take that much. Really doesn't take that much for the average person to end up in that spot, not having a home because of, you know, just these incidents that happen back to back.
Right.
And it's something to think about.
Well, you mentioned, you know, we were taught you go to college, just get a degree in anything. Once you have a degree, you know, it puts you in a better position. And I think that, so my parents, that's what was ingrained in me. Neither of my parents were college graduates. And so for them, that was the answer that they saw fit. But they didn't have that background knowledge or understanding of what that even meant. So it puts us at, it's like you can only give what you have. So our parents, all they knew was to push college. And then for us, we were young and started with absolutely nothing and put our nothing together. And so we learned the hard way about money and things. And so what little limited knowledge that we could share with our kids doesn't come close to preparing them to be stable and fit, because we're still learning and having to learn while we're still adulting, which is not the best way to do it.
Well, one thing I would tell you is, like, it is never too late. And you'll be surprised how little that you really need to know. Everyone thinks there's this massive stuff you got to know everything. Like, no, it's really simple things. And I want to cover some of those things. And it's just, you know, 4 elements, you know, when we're talking about it. And those elements are earth, wind, and fire. No. No.
That's why we're going to take a spiritual journey.
Although, you know, that makes good music. No, it's not that. It's your emotions, your mindsets, your habits, and your relationships. So, and we can really dig into that. But before doing that, is really to understand some basic terminology about money. And some of those terminology will be, what is the difference between financial fitness? Because a lot of times people don't understand, okay, well, what's that? You know, we're not going to the gym.
Right.
And what's financial wellness? People understand wellness, but maybe not so much when you're relating it to finances. So I can put it this way: is the fitness part is like, I'm military. So it's those things that you are doing to prepare yourself for the fight. You know, life is challenging. You're going to face some barriers. You're going to face some adversity. It's what you do to make sure that you can handle those the way that you need to. So that means going to the gym, I use that analogy, is very, very similar, because when you go to the gym, you have to change habits. You have to change maybe the way that you're eating, maybe the way that you're taking in your fluids, maybe the routine that you have, and you have to learn the equipment. So all those things that you're learning and getting to that goal, they're helping you be fit. And the wellness part is like, that's everything. It's what gets you to, that promised land, that place that you want to be, right? That overall financial wellness. What does your total financial picture look like for you?
And so, and you mentioned with the fitness part, that's where the change in habits and you have to do things a little bit different. Is that where you tell me I can't get my Dunkin'?
And that goes along with what you just said, goes with the those 4 elements that I was talking about. Those emotions and the mindset and the habits and relationships. So what you mentioned was more like the mindset. People have a certain mindset around money. It's like, okay, oh, when you start talking about budgeting and words come out like restrictions and all this kind of thing, I can't do this, I can't do that. But as I said, everyone's journey is different. And when you are creating your path, you got to look at, okay, well, what's important to you? We are consumers, so we want to consume. And that gives you a certain, with the emotional part, it gives you, you know, a sense of, you know, feeling good. You know, I spent something, I deserved it, I worked hard, and let me have this. Right, and then when you try to, someone like me comes along, like, you know, you really need to look at that. People don't want to hear that. Like, oh, here you go. You stealing my joy. Like those that like to pay the lotto for that, you know, that feel good. I'm going to win $1 million and more. And they steady, you know, have this habit of, you know, scratching off these tickets, playing the numbers and whatnot. And then I say something and, oh, well, you know, maybe you shouldn't do that, because looking at how much money that you've been spending over the years trying to win that lotto, and your chances of winning are very low, but they don't want to hear that. So, oh no, you know, but it's that mindset. It's that mindset that really matters is, you know, what is your money mindset? And what emotions are you tying to money and the things that you do with it? Those things are determinant factors for how far you go. And a lot of times when you got talk about money, the main emotion that comes with people is fear. There's a lot of fear surrounded it, and it's just because, you know, we, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but a lot of things that we were taught about money is a lie. It's just plain, it's a lie, and it's hard. That's hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. They're like, who are you to tell me, you know, that everything I learned is a lie? Now, I'm not coming as I'm not a guru. I'm not saying that I'm not along my own journey and I still have things left to figure out, or I've never struggled before with money, but it's that understanding and the things that I see continuously with people in their professions, in their pursuit for what they're trying to do. I see it all the time, and it all comes back to money. I've often talking about, you know, business and money, and some folks will say, "Oh, why are you always talking about that? You know, you talk about something else." But my question is, why you don't want to talk about that?
Right.
And a lot of that is because of that fear. A lot of that, you know, failure that they've had, that just, it compounds and it makes them not want to try anything. Like, oh, well, everything's a scam. You know, you can't really do this. I can't do this. And they have that mindset of can't. And so that blocks them from being able to do the things they want to do. So those are critical components of that. So that the emotions, the mindset, and we talk about the habits. The habits are another thing that gets people into trouble, because we don't want to look at it. Like, you know, if your habits are going to, you know, that corner store and get some donuts along with your coffee every morning, right? You don't want to do that. You've gotten accustomed to it. You got that sugar into your system. And like, okay, this gives me joy. Who's going to take that away from me? So, but that habit, you eventually, just like money, it's going to compound. And you're gonna have to pay for it in, whether you know, your health or be something else. So that's part of it. You might see that book behind me, that Atomic Habits. That is a very valuable book that really goes into the habits that we have and how to use those habits that help us reach our goals. So I found a lot of help in that, but it's just amazing how we put them into, it's the secret of money. It's like, you think that it is more complicated than what it is, but it's really not. It's like, okay, well, how do our habits impact our actions? How does our mindset impact, you know, what we do? How does our emotions do that as well? And then lastly, the relationships. So what is your relationship with money? Just like, you know, you guys have been together for a long time, and you know that as a married couple, it takes some compromise. Okay, maybe one spouse has a idea about money and the other one has a different idea. It's like, okay, well, how are we going to meet in the middle? And then sometimes those different ideas about money, they cause a lot of tension. And other times, you know, people might really feel like, you know, they're all on the same path with it and like, oh, we're going to do this. but that's not always the case for everybody. And that's what often leads to a lot of divorces with folks, because, you know, they don't get together. We're focused on other things. And it's that part of communication, that financial communication. It's like, okay, well, what do we do? Do we have joint account? Do we have separate account? How do we track our stuff? And a lot of people don't like to look at it. It's like, all right, let's not look at what we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and pretend like it doesn't exist, because
out of sight, out of mind.
Right. You have your family, and I want to make it's a normal thing where when you're planning to have kids, that you already have things where, oh, I'm gonna set aside and I'm building something for my child's future.
Right.
And it doesn't take much. If you do something consistently, even something small as $10, $20 here, there, over the course of 40 years, that can add up to being a lot. But what happens is this lesson is never learned. And so people don't do it because they don't know it exists. They just, oh, well, all they learn is just save. It's not, okay, save and invest.
Right.
And that's what ends up happening.
Well, I know that we were married and well into adulthood before I even understood that there were different savings accounts with different types of interest and things like that. So my knowledge of money and spending came from my mom, and it wasn't a healthy thing. I thought that a credit card was magical. Card, and they just give you the stuff. And
some people still think that.
Right.
It is magic. You just have to pay up later.
And so then, as an adult, getting caught up in credit cards and things like that, then I had to learn how that interest works and realize that, you know, the pair of shoes that cost $50 and all I have to pay is, you know, $13 a month because I'm going to pay the minimum, that I end up paying $200 for a pair of $50 shoes.
Yep.
And you've made the mistake at that point. So you've dug a little hole for yourself.
Yeah.
And it is hard to, the emotions kick in. And then by this time you form those habits, and the mindset is what kind of kicks it off. So once you have that realization, whatever stage in life, what is it that you begin to do to kind of start changing or tweaking those habits?
Oh, that's a good question. And I think that self-reflection is an important part of it. Because as I said, a lot of people get into the habit and those mindset that they don't, oh, I don't have time for that. You know, what difference does it make? But it's the small things that adds up. And it's like, we have to learn how to compound in a good way and make our money work for us instead of, you know, we just working for our money. And how do we start to do that is, first, we got to get it up here. You have to have that reason of, why should I care about? Why does this matter? And that's like taking the blinders off and looking at what you're doing. You have to look at what you're doing, because how can you start to plan if you don't know what's going on? And a lot of us, we have no kind of tracking system. So if you're not looking at what you're doing, you're not able to see it on paper and have that reminder, oh, well, you know, I'm spending like, what, $1,000 a month on this? No, you know, you normally wouldn't do it if you actually knew that's what you're doing. You probably change that behavior. So understanding the reason why and what you're doing, that's a step in the right direction. But as I made that analogy with the gym, you know, most people have that New Year's resolution. They're going to go to the gym. They're going to get this super sexy summer bod. And for most people, that does not happen. They figure out how much effort it takes, and they I don't know, let's try again next year, and they give up. We don't want to do that, especially with our money. So change won't happen overnight. Step by step, and you keep progressing the things that you're doing. First, let's look at what we're doing, find out why we're doing it, and okay, what can we do differently? And then start putting some of those healthy habits in place, because there's healthy money habits and there's unhealthy money habits. And we have to understand what those are, like, impulse buying. You watching TV and you see something come across the screen late at night, or maybe you had something to drink and, oh, well, I gotta buy it. You don't have to buy it. Let's not do that. So that's some of the things that you can do to start changing that. And the other thing is planning, because that's another thing that people think is restrictive. They don't want to talk about plan. I don't know. Well, I do know why, but it's just unfortunate that that's what it is. And because I'm like, a lot of times we make plans to buy a house, make plans to buy a car, we make plans for our career and all these other things. But why don't we want to plan when it comes to our money? It really doesn't make sense for the most part. That becomes that mindset in a lot of people's minds that they don't want to do it. It's like, I don't have the time plan. It's so stressful to them, and it's that emotion that is stress inducing. And planning for that, it doesn't have to be. And there's guides for it that you can go through and figure out, hey, this is how you start to set goals and do all these things and have these self-reflections of what you're doing that helps you write things down and basically create your plan. And then the other thing is, sometimes people think that once you create a plan, it's just set in stone. No, your plan grows with you. And it grows with your goals. So it's something that you can change. But it also helps keep you on target. It's like, okay, well, I want to do this in, say, 3 years. I want to do this in 10 years. Well, how do you get there? By following your plan.
Right. I know oftentimes with our people, especially, we feel like, well, I work hard and I deserve this or I deserve that. And, some people can't deal with the delayed gratification. Oftentimes,
What people?
Those people.
Well, we're both guilty of it. There's some times where, I know for me, I'll go to a store and, I'll see something, be like, man, I want that. But I'll have to think about it, just like, okay, can I justify this spending right now? And, my family calls me cheap, they call these cheap. But I'll watch something for a while, I'll watch something for a while before I purchase it, because I always have to look, well, we got this going on, that going on, so maybe I don't need to get it right now. But a lot of times people feel prideful, where I work hard, or I'm a nurse, or I'm a doctor, or I'm a lawyer. So it's like, well, I should be able to buy this, $300 pair of shoes if I want them. And, I think that's what catches people up a lot of times, just that attitude and changing that mindset. Like, you know what? Yeah, if people really think about, like you said, do I really need this right now in my life? You know what I'm saying? Because oftentimes I'll see people, will buy something, and I'm guilty of it, don't even use it. We just buy it, it sits in the closet or sit somewhere, and then you don't even use it until, like, I forgot I bought this.
One thing I'll give him credit for, though, if he buys it and doesn't use it, it's because it was on clearance. He is.
Well, I can turn that on the head and say, to everybody, a practice that you could do. You could go around looking for stuff on clearance. You can look at stuff at Goodwill, stuff that, you can turn around a profit, or maybe even some stuff that is free and you fixed it up and I got it for free 99 and I made some money off of it. So it's thinking of different. You can be consumers, but it's just being a strategic consumer. Like, okay, I'm going to buy this because then I know that I can make some more money on it. Like, even people that bought shoes back in the day, I'm not a sneakerhead, but some of the things that back in those times, they had certain shoes that came out, and if they kept those in condition, oh, well, I'm buying them to resell them. They knew something that I didn't know. I'm like, hey, maybe there's something to that. So it's just finding that difference that you see, that what's going on, what people want, and like, oh, well, I can get a deal here, then I can sell it for more over here. And if you do that consistently, that's additional source of income. You have to find ways to save. And being cheap, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being cheap, because everyone wants to have this appearance of, okay, I'm able to afford this quality, but Are the wealthiest people always spending money like that? We might think because in media it looks like they are, but a lot of times they're not. A lot of people that are very wealthy are very frugal people, and we
Right.
just don't know it. But, that we're attracted to all the flashy stuff.
Mhm.
You know what used to amaze me when we first got together? We used to ride around, and just kind of dream, looking at houses. And it was certain neighborhoods you knew that if there may have been one black family in that neighborhood, but most of them were, other races. And one thing I noticed when you went to those neighborhoods, you didn't see a lot of Mercedes. You didn't see a lot of high-end cars. You saw your Camrys. You saw your your
Mhm.
vans. You saw but you had this nice, gorgeous house. Now they may have had a nice, expensive car on the inside, maybe in the garage, but you didn't see that. But then we go over to the other side where there's a lot of wealthy black people, and that's all you see is the big house and the expensive cars. And it's like
Yeah,
I thought to myself, well, I said, these people are on to something. They're not worried about showing their wealth on the outside.
exactly.
And that's really kind of stuck to me throughout the years.
It's a status symbol, and if you think about where a lot of people spend their money, it's in the car. And I always say, well, the car is designed to get you from point A to B,
Yeah,
and you want a quality car, but who says that it has to be brand new? I mean, because
Right. Right.
as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's depreciated. So it's a depreciating asset. So why are you spending all your money on something like that and treating it like an investment, but it's not going to make you any money? Now,
Yeah.
if you're going to turn around and you're going to make some money with it by doing things, that's a different story. But
right.
most people, they just buying that car. Oh, well, I feel like I deserve this nice car. And they'll say, you see it on social media, well, I did a thing. And then there's a picture of them by the car.
Yep,
Like,
yep,
what did you really do? Why are you
Right.
so proud of what you did? No,
right.
you just got yourself in debt. No.
Yep,
Right.
yep, exactly.
And that kind of leads into that and something you said that I wanted to ask you about. So, a lot of times, like we look really good on paper, and that ends up getting me in trouble. You mentioned with the cars. Once I got the first brand new car, I learned very quickly when I went to trade that in why that was a bad idea, because the negative equity in it meant that we can put you in this other brand new car because we have rebates and specials.
Right.
And so it took a while for me to get out of that loop. And once I got out of it, I said I would never get a brand new car again.
Yeah.
So what and then when you said, if people don't want to sit down, we don't want to look at it, we don't want to talk about it. And I know for us, one of the things is because on paper it looks so good, but in real life it just doesn't translate. So are there some things that we can do to make sure that we're looking at things honestly?
It's a little bit complicated because everyone's different.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's just that those mindset are so ingrained that it is really very difficult to get you thinking in the right direction. And I've had a lot of experience with that where, I've sat down with folks and they listen to me. And just like you said, oh, well, this looks good. It sounds good, but they don't really believe it. And
Right.
as a coach, I can't do anything if you don't believe. If you don't believe that it's possible, it's not going to work.
Mhm.
And everyone's different. Some people might be able to read a guide and like, okay, here's this guide, here's this course, and they take it and they're good. And others, you're gonna need that one-on-one coaching. You really need to look at your situation and figure out what's causing your roadblocks, what's causing your self-doubt. There's a lot of things that come in where we got that negative self-talk that we're saying because what's going on in our families.
Yeah,
We're not coming across millionaires. We're not coming across a lot of people that are wealthy that we're having conversation with them, and where it's normal that you're talking about money. Maybe you're going to the golf course and you're talking about those things. You hear those things being discussed commonly and openly. It's no secret, right? But in our communities, that's not happening. And so there's resistance to that. So it's really sitting down and really looking at what's going on, what are your goals? Are your goals realistic? What are your short-term goals and your midterm goals and your long-term goals? What does that look like for you? And what are you going to do to make that happen? It makes no point to put it out there in a plan if you don't have any action steps toward those goals that you're doing. So you really need to have that written out, and you can't just keep it all in your head, because if it's all in your head, what's the likelihood that you're going to follow through on it?
Right.
More likely you won't. And that's why I said, even though a lot of people don't like to plan, it's essential if you really want. And that's what I was talking about. The money secrets is not what I'm talking about. What we've been talking about, it's not been anything that's like amazing. It hasn't been anything that's very complicated. It's been very, very simple things. And it's these simple things that get you where you need to go. But the thing is, you have to be consistent with it. You have to start acting on it. And as I said before, it's not just saving, because people have hard time saving as it is, but it's also investing. And when you mention investing, people just get this big fear that comes over them, this shell shock, where they think like, oh, well, you have to have a lot of money to do this. No, I'm not ready for doing this right now. And as I said before, it's small amounts that over time consistently leads to something.
Right.
But that was one of the things that I just, let's say within the last 5 or so years, realized, because I thought as far as like investing and buying stocks, that you had to have enough money to buy an entire stock. It wasn't until I was introduced to what is it, Robinhood, and
where you can do partial
where you
shares.
can do partial shares. I think they have some ways to invest on Cash App. Actually, certain different apps that you can just go in there and just buy, percentages of stocks. And I think just that knowledge, if people had that knowledge, they could say, well, hey, I can go, instead of going and spend $50 going to the club and balling out or whatever, I can take that $50 and buy a stock, And that's some of the things that people don't really realize. So for the young couple that's starting out, like us, we were making very little money, very little money, and we were just struggling trying to make ends meet. But for that couple out there that's just starting out, that doesn't have a safety net, what kind of advice would you give them as far as how to start with the plan and structure it and follow through with it?
Yes. Well, one, you have to make that conversation fun. You can't just make it like stressful and fear-inducing, and that part is difficult. I mean, that's harder than the money part, really.
Right.
It's just getting to where you get accustomed to it and figuring out, okay, well, what do you want and what do you want? Your goals might not match up, so you got to figure out if they don't, why, where's that compromise? And find those tools that's going to work for you, because there's a lot of tools out there. Maybe you're someone that does it old school, do it on a notebook, or maybe you do it on a spreadsheet, or maybe you're someone that you need an app to make everything easier for you, and everyone's financial transactions are being tracked and it's going somewhere where everybody could take a look at it and like, okay, well, I don't know, maybe we're going to have a date night and make it fun, but make it a challenge. A lot of couples like to have games together, game night together. Okay, well, let's have a financial stuff. We'll see who can save and invest the most over this period of time. Something like that. That is fun, where it's just taking money and just that different mindset. If you planning to have some kids, sometimes kids happen unexpectedly, but if your plan is like, okay, well, what's the future kid fund and what we're doing with it, and those are things that you start to do to have that conversation. And then once you have that conversation, now we can start stepping into the planning. Okay, well, who do we need? Do we need a financial advisor? Do we need a financial coach? A lot of times I believe that you need both. Because just like that analogy with the gym, Most people don't go into the gym and just automatically know what they need to do with all the equipment and to get the results that they want. They need a professional to help them along the way, get to where they need to get, and understanding some of these things about money, and no, it doesn't take a lot. And what are those components of that safety net? And some folks think that it's a job. Okay, if I have the right job that's making me six-figure, that means that I'm not going to have any financial distress. And that's a lie. Like, no, it's what you're doing, because you earn more money. A lot of times, because you earn more money, you spend more money, right? Because we're not tracking what we're doing. We don't have a plan. We're not looking at any milestones. Oh, well, I want to be here. And what can I look at that tells me that I've reached my goal? And then I'm able to celebrate it. Yes, I have an emergency fund. And okay, well, I have at least $1,000. And most Americans don't even have $1,000 in their emergency fund. Well, how do I get there? Baby steps. Maybe I want to say, oh, my goal is to get $500. Let's start at $500. Yeah. How do we get to $500? Okay, well, I'm going to take $50 and every paycheck put in automatically. Maybe I have to put it automatically in this emergency fund. Maybe I'm going to start this high yield savings account that gets more interest, and I'm gonna put the money there. Or maybe I just have a regular savings account. And then once I get to that $500, I'll celebrate that I got there. And like, okay, let's do 500 more. And then I have my $1,000, and then I can build up from there. So it's those goals. And then looking at also the long term. So what are we investing in the long term? Do we have a 401k? You know, do we have an IRA? What are we doing with our money, preparing us for retirement? When do we want to retire? That's a good question. Does it have to be 65? No. You know, and a better question is, how much money do we need when we retire? Right. A lot of us are going to need more than $1 million. Right. To retirement. And if you don't have $1 million, how are you going to get there? How are we getting to $1 million? Where are we going to live? Some people might think, you know what? I think Bali sounds really good. I'm going to move myself, pat my bags, because the American dollar can stretch much further in a foreign country, and I can get all these things, and that's how I'm going to do it. But whatever your plan is to start thinking about those things and what you need to have in it to get where you want to go. Right. And okay, so sitting here listening to the information, and it's wonderful. I am anxious listening to it. So like you said, financial advisor, and I remember we went to a meeting. There was a financial advisor who invited people. So, you know, you hear his presentation, and we were so excited. And then he gave an amount, and I was like, at one time. So those types of things, we're middle-aged. And so we're wanting to speed up the date to be able to walk away from our full-time jobs. So what types of things would we need to start looking into to get that fast track to prepare us, even if we're not necessarily retiring because we want to be self-employed? What can we do to kind of speed things up a little bit? Awesome. I am so glad that you asked that, because that's where we're getting to that opportunity conversation. Right. And when people hear the word opportunities, they don't know what to think of it a lot of times, because as I said, most people think, and I'm not talking down about having a 9-to-5. Right. Nothing's wrong with that. Actually, you can use a 9-to-5 and be strategic with it, and, you know, invest with it, do all these other things, or you can not have to give up your 9-to-5 and you can still have other opportunities. But that's when you put things on paper and you start tracking what you're doing. You're like, okay, what's income source? You have a dual income source. You know, one, you're married, you have a spouse make this amount of income, this spouse makes this amount of income, you combine those two together. But what if there's other sources of income? Right. You each have different sources of income that's coming in. That helps you get to your goals faster. You can invest more money You can put money towards different things. You can make strategic investment. You can invest in real estate. You can invest in businesses that, you know, you don't always have to be the one that's managing the whole thing. Maybe you invested, but you're getting money from that. And, you know, finding ways to get that, you know, that active and that passive income. So those things start to compound. So it's just looking at those opportunities. And there's a lot of stuff out there. There's hundreds of different ways to make more money. But it's just that we're not taught to do that. And then when people start getting on social media and they search things, they watch these TikToks, and these are little bites of information.
Right.
It doesn't mean that everything's a scam, but yes, people make it sound very attractive. And yes, they want viewers. They want people to tap into their message. So that's part of marketing. No one's going to listen to someone and say, oh, well, this is really hard and this is going to for you. You don't want to listen to that message. You want to hear what you want to hear, right? So they're going to give you what they want because they understand how you think and what some of the struggles are. So they're going to tell you that. Yes, it will be a challenge, and you're going to have to take the time to go through those things and look at some of those opportunities. Like you had mentioned, learning more about investing. I recommend something that, you know, I had that mindset because I rented some rooms out of my home. And then I had a guest that I became friends with, and, you know, he was like a day trader. He was, you know, in the room just all day, you know, trading. Then at night he'd go out and party. And I was like, okay. And it's kind of interesting. And I always had in my mind that I can't possibly do that. I'm not smart enough to learn how to, you know, trade in the market. And it was just this negative mindset that I had for whatever reason. But it really isn't that hard to learn those things and add to that to your skill set outside of your job or with your job that you do. And I recommend Webull as one of those tools because it provides education and it provides a thing that's called paper trading. So it's where you trade not using your own money. It's like fake money, but you're testing out your strategy before you start to trade and learning how to paper trade for, let me learn stuff about stocks and how to place different type of trades. You can even learn how to automate some things. Like if you talked about fractional shares of stock, you can automate that process. Like me, I've automated, I'm gonna take every week, I'm gonna take $10 and I'm gonna have it buy this many shares of this stock. I'm take $5 and have it buy this many shares. And at the end of the day, it's only like it adds up to like $20, but if over time that's starting in the right direction. But that's just one of my strategies just to get started. That's the hardest thing is this to get started with doing something. You know, it might not be much, but it's that thing that inside makes you feel I'm doing something. I'm not just doing the same thing and not making any progress or being scared of there being risk. I mean, we wake up every day and walking down the street is a risk. Right. The car is a risk. We take risks. So you have to be able to say that, you know, I can't avoid risk, but what I can do is I can reduce my risk. How do I reduce my risk? By not, you know, putting all your money in one thing. Don't put all your money in one thing. Just, you know, do a little bit of money that you're probably wasting anyway. As you said before, take that $50 and let's do something good with it that's going to give us a better return. Start learning about some companies that you might be interested in and what's going on with them. And I have examples where, you know, I'm following a technology company or something else. And some financial news happened. If I got that stock at a low price, it doesn't even take that much. I got it at a low price. And then, all right, well, their stock had dipped. I got it at that price. And then some great news happens and those stocks go up. It shoots up more than 3-4 times. That little stock that I had, if I sell it at that price, that higher price than what I bought it, I just made a lot of money. Right. And it doesn't take much. It's just simple strategy about that and how to automate that process. How do I prevent myself from losing a bunch of money? Okay, well, I made this trade and I want it to stop here. I'm going to put in this order to make it stop at this point because I'm planning it out. So I talked about planning. Planning comes also in trading as well. You're learning how to paper trade. You're learning some of the terms. You're learning what to look at when it comes to charting and all those type of things. You're looking at, oh, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And Webull has a very strong platform that teaches you all these type of things if you just really take the time to look.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I recommend with that. And other opportunities, I could say that's good for you as being an educator would be using what you have up here to make money. And what
Right.
educators do, they come up with lesson plan.
Right.
When you're coming up with lesson plans, what can you do that leads to a digital product that you
Right.
find out what somebody wants to know and what they're willing to have you explain in your unique way. You create it once and you just have to market it, and you're making income off of what you have created.
Right.
I actually, when you said Webull, I was following this gentleman that was on Instagram, and he was saying, just opening up an account with Webull. I think at that time they would give you like so many. I think it was 2 shares of stock, something like free. Just open up an account with $50. I want to say, and I did it.
Yeah, I have one too. During the pandemic,
Yeah, it was offering all kind of free stuff.
I
Right.
stocks, Bitcoin, cooking, crafts, you name it. And during the pandemic, I became a little expert in a lot of things. But then when life started again, those things kind of got pushed to the side. So,
and one of the things I did, I'd work on cars on the side, so sometimes my customers would pay me through Cash App. Most time they do, and I would take a certain percentage, $10, $20 here, and I would buy stocks or whatever, buy some dividends, and I kind of slacked off on doing that. But I thought that being able to invest right in the app, that was a healthy way of getting started. So is that something that you recommend? I mean, I know we talked about it earlier, but for somebody that's dealing with that, they don't really know anything. I know they have to educate themselves, of course, but if they start with like Cash App, everybody uses it, or Venmo, whatever they use. Is that something that you recommend that could help someone learn and get started and find their way to invest in? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
guys.
Well, as fast as I was looking at like Cash App as a platform, I didn't really like that because it doesn't have as many educational tools and that free range of stuff that you can do with, as I was saying, that where you can automate stuff and you can control what type of, and I know we're getting kind of deep into it, but it may not make sense for everybody, but getting into the type of order that you're making with the particular stocks that you have.
Webull has that piece too, that you can do the educational part to learn how to do it and then apply it.
Oh, okay.
Right. So that's why I recommend, because people kind of get the account started, but they don't move past that, and they don't see all the different tools. I mean, there's nothing wrong. I mean, that happens. You get distracted and you move on. But there's so much tools in that's available in Webull. And one of the things that I wanted to do is just kind of make a guide to help people with that, because I started to understand that a lot of people just don't understand how this works. This is, you are becoming your own advisor and learning how to make your trade. And I'll just make this disclaimer. I'm not a certified financial advisor. That's not my title, but I do know what I'm talking about. But people that giving advice on exactly how to trade, you need to have some type of certification that, gives you that, because you're licensed and you know how the market and stuff works. But just to get someone started and finding the right strategies, find what works for you. But, fractional shares is a good way to get started. You can have different type of stocks that maybe you like to do, Apple and all these tech stocks that are out there, and you want to get a piece of it. And that is a little chipping away at that big block at a little over time.
Yeah.
Now, that's not going to make you a millionaire overnight. It's not going to happen, but you start to learn other strategies like, okay, well, looking at up and coming companies that their stock price is less than $1.
Right.
So, and some things, and learning to look at, their financial statements, the news that's going on with them, and, you having these big old shoots in the stocks that they have for this performance that they're doing, and you're able to get that positioning. People understand what that means. Get into the right position low enough, that's very valuable, because once you're there and you're patient, because a lot of people, they like, okay, well, I don't have the patience to wait. Do you have to make that decision? Do I hold? Do I sell? When do I sell? So that's part of understanding what that's going to look like for you, and that's looking like for that stock, and making that decision that, oh, this is my plan. And then I'm automating it. So I don't have to stay watching it. And that's one of the beautiful things that I like about Webull is I can just make a plan like, okay, this is where I want to be at. Let me not be greedy, but when it gets to this point, I want it to sell, and then I'll put it there and I'll just forget it. So when that happens, I can set it. I think it's something like 3 months that you can set, and you don't have to sit there and watch it all day. You already have it set, and you've made your plans and your different positions that you have, and like, okay, I have this all automated. And who can't do that?
Right.
I think everybody can do that. I had a conversation with a family member of mine, and she had all these negative things while she failed at trading and what. And I'm like, no, you got this. These are all the tools that you need. Even if you want me to walk you through how to do, I'm there to help you. So don't think that you fail and it's impossible. We can all do this. So getting that money through trading, getting that money after creating from your own intellectual property that you have, and creating something, whether it be teaching people how to work on their own cars and do oil chains or whatever. You could do that, or something else that you find, even something as, believe it or not, a cookbook. Right. You can create a cookbook, a digital cookbook. There's people that want to see different recipes, and sell that for $7, times that by hundreds of people, that ends up being a lot of money. And so you ask, how do you speed that up? Is by using that creativity. You find a problem, you provide a solution for that problem, and you market it. That's how you speed things up. And these things add up. There are regular people, just like you and me, that every day they're doing. I'm seeing this all the time. People think that it's impossible, but I've seen people come out of prison and be wealthy. I've seen people come out of being unhoused and be wealthy. I've seen single mothers raising 4 kids by themselves become wealthy. This is not for people that just are smart and people that just have they have the right social standing. No, this is for everybody. We control our money, and then that's just something that's very foreign to folks to think that we do. But yes, I mean, don't get mad at me, people, but I'm telling you, I'm not coming at you, but we do control our money. You just have to have the mindset that you are in control of that. You really are. It's not your job that controls that. That's what we've been taught to believe, but it's not. No. You create those opportunities and you take action on them, and that's what determines your success.
So how do you, when you're working with your clients, how do you keep them motivated and focused on that? Because I know, like for us, we have the day-to-day, we have our bills coming in, we have income that is limited based on, it's your income. You know what your income is going to be based on the work. So all of this is exciting, and you want to try things, and you want to open your mind to try and think differently. But then maybe you get home and you're tired, or you have an extra expense that comes up that you didn't expect. So how do you help your clients to keep that motivation?
Well, first you have to have clear expectations and really start to understand that person. Like, what are you really dealing with? And, if you give me bad information, well, how am I going to help you? You have to get that trust from that person, really get them to open up, on what's going on. Like, look, I'm not here to embarrass you. I'm not here to share your information with anyone else. That's not what we're doing. I'm here to help. I'm your partner. We're going to partner together and we're going to get through it. So you have those regular check-ins. Like, how often per week are we going to meet? We're going to meet once a week with your situation. And usually that's the standard. We meet once a week to get you through it. And normally this is not something that, you're going to have one call and that's just going to solve it all. No,
Right.
This is going to take at least a month to get someone on the path, and you got to keep working with them to get to those wins.
Right.
Those wins could be small, but psychologically that means a lot. You get a small win and show people that they can do it when they've been telling themselves all their lives that they can't.
Right.
That starts a chain reaction. So you have to have that communication and you have to get them to the wins. Like, okay, let me walk you down this path. Let's do this baby step first and get a win here and then go from there, despite whatever, things that you might have going on. And if people, sometimes they even motivated by their kids, right? So maybe you can add the kids with some of that challenges that you have going on. And kids like playing games like that. And you involving them in what you're doing and talking about money. At the same time, you educate them as well. So I don't think that, it's wise like to hide these things from kids and not have discussions about money. You need to have it as early as possible that they can understand, and that talking about money is a good thing, and let them know what you're doing. Hey, mama and daddy is doing this big thing and this is what we're doing. We got older kids. Hey, some of those habits have been integrated into what they do with their lives, and it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. And maybe you're having a family discussion. Hey, we're going to have a challenge of, what we're going to do with our money. Or maybe, you might start something together, going to do family business. In my family, I'll just be open about it. It's becoming an entrepreneur is not easy.
Right.
It's really not easy because it's foreign for a lot of people and they don't understand the struggle. We don't have a lot of cheerleaders in our corner because, when you get that job, that new job, everyone's cheering for you. They're in your section. Oh, congratulations, you got the new job. Congratulations. And then when I started a business. And there's silence. I'm like, why is that?
A little business coming.
Yeah, and some people it's like, well, you expect it to happen, the success to happen overnight. Right. No, business owners go through a lot of struggles, and it's just, I think it's that pathway to getting to what you want, because you're not just the individual anymore, you're a business entity. Right. And that entity can do a lot for you on a personal side as well if you're able to learn how to use it, like learning how to use business credit, learning how to get all these different type of accounts and stuff within your business. These are all opportunities. So it's part of that greater picture. So those things that motivate people is like, all right, planning is part of it. How do you want this, but you can't get here without doing this first. So let's get you there and keep you motivated. If business is on a horizon for you, then great. Or maybe it's not business. Maybe it's something else that you learn, or you already have the skills that people are willing to pay for. I think that's exciting. Let's set, goal. All right, if I say I need to make $10,000 this year, at least $10,000 I need to add to my income this year. That's pretty exciting when you think that is actually possible to do that. Well, how do we do that? How do we get there? If our goal is $10,000, how do we make that happen realistically? What are some things that we can do? Not something that I'm telling you that you're going to do. No, what's some of the things that you can do that you are excited about, that you will stay on target with doing?
Right.
So I know that you're a business consultant, and you just mentioned about businesses. So would you recommend, like, if someone is working on their personal finance situation and trying to build would seeking out business ownership and entrepreneurship be something to do at the same time, or should you have personal stuff in a certain place?
You can do it at the same time. A lot of times when you're just starting out and you don't have business credit, there will look at stuff on a personal side. But there's also, different strategies that you could use, and a business could be something that helps you get your personal side fixed up, especially if you have maybe you have a partner that has very good credit, and they are part owners with you in the business, and you have that all in writing. Is the legal stuff has that right checks and balances, and it makes sense because some people don't like to talk about partnerships, but partnerships are very important. They can be very lucrative. So utilize that partnership they have. Have the right type of business, not one that is super risky to a lender, right? So if you have one of those industries that's not known as risky, hey, start that business and get that going and start fixing your personal credit. But I think the biggest thing with that is really when you talk about personal credit, is to understand what's going on. You might have a poor credit score, but if you don't know what's impacting your credit score, that's a problem. So go ahead and get your free credit report for the 3 different bureaus and look at what's in those reports. Is there anything that's not accurate? Is there anything that you can challenge? And if you can challenge it, learning how to challenge and getting some resources that help you. So there's some companies that'll do it for you. There's some companies that will do it with you. And there's some companies that will teach you how to actually do it. And this all ranges when it comes to price. With that, sometimes it might be just a simple subscription that you might take that gives you the basics. But if you don't start somewhere, how are you going to fix that and get anywhere? So it's really, really important to look at those things. And it's great if you have access to a lot of money on the personal side, and then you got access to a lot of money on a business side. Wouldn't that solve a lot of problems? If you got $100,000 here, $100,000 here, you could do a lot with that, right? So that's what I talk about with opportunities. That's an opportunity that's often missed because people don't want to have that conversation about businesses.
Right.
Why do I always talk about business and money? There's a reason why, because it really goes under people's nose because they're focused on just getting through the day and going through this routine and not having time for anything new. No, this is stuff that you're missing, and it's not a fad. It's not a scam. These are things that people are doing every day.
At the beginning, I mentioned that both of my parents, it was you go to college and get a degree, and neither of them did. And I remember speaking with my mom, and I mentioned something about there was a college visit, and I had spoken with someone, and I said, I think I want to major in business. And she was, oh, no, you have to have money to own a business. And I mean, she was dead set against it.
Yeah.
My father was a business owner. So that was how that was our livelihood. And he never encouraged that entrepreneurial spirit in me. She never encouraged that. She was, they were both more focused on pushing me towards something more stable.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult when you don't have someone supporting that desire to take a risk.
Right.
And I can understand why that is, because I think some people focus on business. They enter the business with the wrong mindset that they have to do everything by themselves.
Yeah.
I think these days, maybe in their day is different, but now we have technology. Now we can live in different states, and we're able to come and meet and do a kind of a mastermind. Let's put our heads together and put the different skill sets together and figure out how to make this happen. You can collaborate. Everyone in business don't have to be, all right, it's the, fight for the fittest. Who's the fittest? And those are the ones that survive. No, let's figure out who do I need to collaborate to make these things happen. You might not. And I was telling my mom just the other day, because she was having a lot of negative self-talk about, oh, I can't do this because, she was a certain age. And sometimes you get a certain age and you think, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. I'm like, well, look, you don't have to be the one doing it. You just might have to be pulling some of that knowledge, and then you have someone else that's able to do that. Like maybe you don't know anything about creating a digital product, but you know someone else that does. Maybe you don't know anything about marketing, but you know someone else that does, and you put those things together, and you just coming up with the idea, and then those folks or that person is turning that idea into reality and making it come true. Where I said, you got that win. Hey, I created something, and now the thing that I created it once, and it's out in the public, and it's making me money, and people just don't realize, it's not magical, of course. It takes a little bit of work, but it doesn't take as much work as people think. You put it out there on the right platforms, and if you understand who you're targeting, solving their problem, and you make that attractive, they're going to buy it.
Yeah. Before we close out, for our listeners, going back to the word we use that people fear, the budget. It's like a bad word in some people's mindset. Give our listeners some basic things to look for as far as a budget. Some people hear the word, but they don't actually know what a budget consists of. So can you give us some basics of like, what would you list on the budget and things like that, to kind of help some people out?
Okay. Well, your budget is part of your financial plan. I don't know, we talked a lot about planning, and just like with business, you don't just jump into, or you shouldn't just jump into business without some type of plan, because that's the fastest way to fail. And a lot of people don't recover from that. And it's just understanding, what you can learn from failure. But let's not do that with our money, or if we failed at our money, how do we win? Budgeting is part of that key. And it's looking at, how am I tracking my money? Because how can you create a budget if you're not tracking anything? So you need that data from what you're tracking. And I tell people that, at least track back last month. What did you do in the last month with your money? Yeah, it might be depressing, it might be depressing, but it's okay. No one's there to judge you. You're trying to take baby steps and make changes. So you need that tracking data from what you did within the last month. And then a lot of times in your bank, the bank might make it easy for you, where you can look in there and it might allocate, actually categorize your spending for you. A lot of banks have that. If your bank doesn't, maybe you can, do it old school and download some of that data, put it on a spreadsheet, and just highlight some of the things that you've been doing with your money, where all your expenses are going. Or this is the part where some people don't like. There are apps that you can do, and you can tie it to your bank, where it will, you're tying it to your bank, where you're logging in on that app and giving it permission to track what you're doing with your money. And so you look at that app, and it tells you, without doing all the work, where all your money is going. And then you can look at that every week. So I say start there, but that budget changes. So you're getting that data, you're looking at your goals, and you're going to look at, how much money do I have coming in? How much do I got going out? What am I doing with my money? What type of savings do I need? How much am I investing? And then some people financially have these percentages. You need this percent, that percent. I don't like to make it complicated. If that works for you, you can follow that percentage rule of how to allocate your money towards your different goals. But I believe, it's more or less looking at and tailoring it for you of what you want to do, that short term, midterm, and that long term, those goals, and setting those aside. So what you have coming in, what you have going out, that's a critical part of your budget. Another thing is, just figuring out what you're going to do with it. So look at those milestones and how to set them.
Okay, that sounds good. I know. I remember reading a book a while back from Dave Ramsey, Total Money Makeover.
Right.
And he's stressed a zero balance budget, where you allocate everything, the whole entire paycheck, all the way down to zero. So you put something here, you put something in savings, you put something, you should have zero balance. Is that something that you would recommend to people?
Yes.
You just, you're allocating every dollar or every cent
right. So it's having that that every dollar is working towards something, and that makes sense. And Dave Ramsey is, one of the people that I recommend, but some people will say, oh, well, he's unrealistic, and they'll say all kind of things. But you have to figure out, there's so many different strategies out there, and I don't think, it's just focusing on the particular strategy. It's focusing on what works for you.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Just like anything else. And I think that with money, with anything, you listen to, and this is slighting all of us, but you listen to people and they tell you, you do X, Y, and Z to get the desired outcome. But what we also have to say is you do X, Y, and Z in context to your life and your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And if it's something that you're not going to stick with, or if it doesn't make sense to you, if you can't see clearly, then we need to, find another strategy.
Right. And I think there's like one word that we didn't mention, and that was debt. So we talk about debt, and that's the biggest. When you talk about budget, and really need to be talking about some debt, because that's what a lot of us have problems with, is debt. Maybe people have student loans. We listen to what our parents said, and hey, we got to go to college and get this degree. And a lot of people that did that are finding themselves they're really tied down with that student debt that they have. And how do you start chipping away at that? And that's some of the things that I talked about. You have to come up with different income producing opportunities.
Right.
And that's like that. Sorry to say, but that times where we think that one income is going to do it and that's it. No, I believe those days are long gone. We have to have those additional sources of income, using technology to help us and boost our brain capacity, things that we could do. I mean, you could put into Chat GPT different ideas, and it will literally within seconds spit out information for you. You can just ask it questions, the right question, and it will spit out these things. So we have to learn how to tackle, and those are the ways that we come at debt, is figuring out how we make more money and setting goals. Hey, maybe I need start with the baby step. I only need an extra $500 a month, right? Mm-hmm. What would that do? A lot of people, $500 a month extra in their income will make a drastic difference in their lives. So how can we do it? So some is, let's go to the drawing board and look, okay, well, let's start with what we can save. Where are we spending our money? Which we've been tracking. So what do we stop doing that we don't need that can save some more of this money, so we can have more of our income that we're doing more with it instead of it just going down the pit, right? So is it how to get more of our income working for us with that, simple $500, or maybe I need $1,000 extra. Well, how do I get there? What could I do? Look through the household. What are some of the things that I'm not using and just gathering dust that I could sell and make that money and get that, and different opportunities like creating things that you can make, or learning a skill that you can charge people for. Maybe you want to be a freelancer where you can work from anywhere. And it's all only like, hey, I learned how to do marketing, or I know how to do marketing, or I know how to do websites. I can get clients that are going to pay me for this package. And as long as I got a strong flow of clients, no one can ever take that away from me. No one can say I'm fired, because no, I have that skill already, and I'm having my book of clients, and they're writing testimonials for me, and I'm getting it. So those are things that you're doing to help tackle some of that debt. You're teaching people, because I think educators have superpowers, because they're used to doing that. Educating people on something, and there's so many people out there through technology that they want to learn a skill. They want to learn something, even simple as baking or making drinks, or baking a cake. They want to learn these stuff. They like seeing this stuff on social media, and so if you're able to translate that to what they want, people will pay you for that knowledge, and you start tackling these debts that's in your budget. Like, okay, well, this much money goes toward the debt. And then I figure out what debt I'm wanting to pay, or what I got going on with my credit cards, or this one has this much interest and I really need to tackle this first because I'm causing a lot of harm because I'm paying the minimum balance.
Right.
And getting this, those are things that people are not taught to look at. Let's look at what's going on with those credit cards. Where is our debt coming from, and what do we need to be putting toward it so we're not in a cycle of debt where, I mean, you basically throwing a pebble at it and it's just gonna keep growing, growing, and growing. You're never going to get out of debt if you do it that way. So look at it, figure it out, and put that within your budget, and you'll be along the right track.
All right.
Man, that's fantastic, brother. Well, we thank you for your time, Rico. We have really enjoyed this. You have informed us on a lot.
Right.
And you have
stepped
helped
on
us.
My toes once or twice.
Yeah, you stepped on my toes, and you got us thinking about some things that we need to do and change for ourselves to prepare for our future. For those who have been listening and they would like to get in contact with you to get some strategies going for themselves, how can they reach out to you?
There's a few ways. Some people don't really understand the power of LinkedIn. It is very powerful, and as another resource that I'm working on to show people how to use that to help them in their careers and their businesses. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me at WayMaker Services, www.waymakerservices.net. You can find my contact information there. And we can have a conversation. I plan to also do a lot of free classes out there, and just like we're talking now, my goal is just to start with making that conversation like we've been having enjoyable, where you don't dread it and it's fun. It's not someone talking to you about boring stuff that you don't care about.
Right.
And
I will say that even though there were some touchy moments, I am motivated and excited to sit down and look at things.
Yes.
There was a lot of optimism that came from what we talked about. So we appreciate that.
Yes, we definitely appreciate it, and appreciate your time on this good Friday evening. And brother, hang in there. Just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're helping. If you hadn't helped anybody, you definitely helped us tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Beyond I Do podcast.
Please make sure to like this episode and also subscribe to our podcast. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Beyond I Do podcast.
And until next time, we will holler at y'all.